People often believe they can understand someone in a single glance. They rely on surface details, posture, tone, and volume to decide who holds power in a moment. When they looked at Bruce Lee, many saw calm instead of aggression, restraint instead of urgency, and silence instead of display. To them, this suggested harmlessness. It suggested a lack of threat. It suggested control was unnecessary. That judgment shaped everything that followed. Bruce Lee did not rush to correct these assumptions. He did not adjust his behavior to match expectations or perform readiness for reassurance. He allowed others to believe what they wanted, knowing that misjudgment creates its own consequences. While they relaxed into false certainty, he remained attentive, present, and aware. Long before anything visible changed, the balance had already shifted. Most people believe they can understand a situation the moment they see it. They rely on posture, facial expression, tone, and visible tension to decide whether someone is dangerous, capable, or worth taking seriously. This habit feels efficient, but it is deeply flawed. What looks calm is often mistaken for weak. What looks quiet is assumed to be disengaged. What does not announce itself is dismissed. Bruce Lee understood this pattern early, and he understood how costly it could be for those who relied on it. When Bruce Lee did not project urgency or aggression, people relaxed around him. They felt safe lowering their guard because nothing in his appearance triggered alarm. His movements were controlled rather than sharp. His posture was natural rather than rigid. His expression was neutral rather than confrontational. To many, this signaled a lack of readiness. That assumption did not come from observation, but from expectation. People expected danger to look a certain way, and when it did not, they assumed danger was absent. This is how false confidence forms. It does not come from strength or clarity, but from comfort. When people believe they have correctly read a situation, their attention narrows instead of expanding. They stop scanning for detail because they think the important information has already been gathered. That moment of certainty feels reassuring, but it is the beginning of vulnerability. Bruce Lee knew that the moment someone feels certain, they stop observing carefully. False confidence is not loud at first. It appears as ease. Speech becomes casual. Movements become less deliberate. Timing becomes sloppy. People begin acting as if precision no longer matters. Bruce Lee did not interrupt this process. He allowed it to unfold naturally. He understood that people reveal far more when they believe they are in control than when they feel threatened. Appearance plays a powerful psychological role because it influences behavior on both sides. When someone looks intimidating, others become cautious. When someone looks harmless, others become careless. Bruce Lee recognized that his calm appearance shifted responsibility away from himself and onto those around him. They made decisions based on how they felt, not on what was actually happening. That emotional shortcut worked against them. What made this especially dangerous was the assumption that calm meant inattention. People believed that because Bruce Lee was not reacting, he was not noticing. In reality, he noticed more precisely because he was not reacting. Reaction consumes attention, observation preserves it. While others focused on projecting confidence, Bruce Lee focused on gathering information. False confidence also creates momentum. Once someone decides they understand a situation, they begin building actions on that belief. Each step reinforces the original assumption, even if it is wrong. This makes it harder to correct later, because admitting a misjudgment feels like admitting weakness. Bruce Lee allowed this momentum to build. He knew that the longer it continued, the more difficult it would be for others to adjust. Another reason appearance is so misleading is that people associate tension with seriousness. They believe someone who is ready must look strained, focused, and alert at all times. Bruce Lee rejected this entirely. He understood that constant tension limits perception and drains energy. His calm appearance was not the absence of readiness, but the result of discipline. He had trained himself to remain relaxed so his awareness could stay open. Those who mistook this calm for weakness were responding to their own conditioning, not to reality. They trusted surface signals instead of substance. Bruce Lee trusted understanding instead of display. This difference shaped the entire interaction long before any action occurred. False confidence also encourages overestimation. People begin to believe they have an advantage that does not exist. They move too quickly. They commit too early. They expose intentions through unnecessary behavior. Bruce Lee observed all of this without interfering. He did not need to provoke mistakes. The belief that he was not a factor caused others to create mistakes on their own. The most dangerous part of false confidence is that it feels justified. People do not feel reckless when they are misjudging. They feel reasonable. That is why correction rarely comes in time. By the time doubt appears, options have already narrowed. Bruce Lee understood that perception shapes outcome before action ever does. He did not try to look powerful because he did not need others to believe in his power for it to exist. He allowed his appearance to remain neutral, knowing that neutrality invites assumption. Those assumptions created a false sense of security that weakened attention and discipline in others. This lesson extends far beyond physical situations. In life, people constantly judge capability based on appearance, tone, and presentation. They decide who is serious, who is capable, and who matters based on surface signals. Bruce Lee's approach exposed how unreliable this habit is. True readiness does not always look impressive. True awareness does not always announce itself. The people who misjudged him paid the price, not because he sought to deceive, but because they chose comfort over observation. They trusted what they thought they saw instead of staying alert to what they did not understand. Bruce Lee stayed present while others relaxed into assumption. That is why appearance creates false confidence. It replaces curiosity with certainty and attention with comfort. Bruce Lee never relied on appearance to define reality. He allowed others to do that for him, knowing that misjudgment is most dangerous to the one who makes it. Many people believe preparation must always be visible. They expect readiness to look like tension in the shoulders, sharpness in the eyes, stiffness in posture, and constant movement that signals alertness. Anything less than that is often interpreted as a lack of seriousness. Bruce Lee understood how deeply this belief was ingrained, and he also understood how misleading it could be. Bruce Lee's calm was not something that appeared by chance. It was trained deliberately. He knew that tension narrows perception. When the body tightens, awareness collapses inward. Attention becomes selective, emotional reactions increase, and adaptability decreases. What people often call readiness is sometimes nothing more than anxiety disguised as focus. Bruce Lee rejected that state entirely. Instead of tightening under pressure, he learned to relax without losing awareness. His breathing stayed steady, his posture remained natural, and his movements were economical. To an untrained observer, this looked like ease. To someone relying on surface cues, it looked like disengagement. But beneath that calm exterior was constant preparation, operating quietly and efficiently. Calm allowed Bruce Lee to process more information, not less. While others focused on projecting alertness, he focused on receiving input. He noticed changes in rhythm, spacing, and behavior that tension would have obscured. His relaxed state acted like an open channel rather than a locked position. This openness was what made his preparation effective. People often confuse preparation with anticipation. Anticipation is mentally rehearsing what might happen, usually driven by fear or ego. Preparation, as Bruce Lee understood it, was the ability to respond accurately to what actually happened. Calm made this possible. By not committing emotionally or physically too early, he preserved flexibility. This is why Bruce Lee did not broadcast readiness. Broadcasting invites reaction. It signals intent and allows others to adjust. By remaining calm, he stayed unreadable. Those around him could not tell when he was evaluating, deciding, or ready to act. That uncertainty created imbalance, especially in people who relied on visible cues to feel secure. Calm also conserved energy. Tension drains both physical and mental reserves. People who stay in a constant state of alertness burn themselves out quickly. Bruce Lee understood endurance was part of preparation. He did not waste energy proving readiness when none was required. He saved it for moments when action would matter. Another reason calm hides preparation is psychological. When someone looks relaxed, others assume control is unnecessary. They let their guard down. They speak more freely. They move with less discipline. Bruce Lee allowed this shift to happen. He did not correct it because it worked in his favor. The calmer he appeared, the less carefully others managed themselves. This does not mean Bruce Lee relied on deception. He did not fake calm. He embodied it. His calm came from trust in his training and understanding. He knew he did not need to rush because clarity would not disappear. That confidence removed the need for performance. People who misinterpreted this calm often believed readiness required visible effort. They equated strain with seriousness and ease with laziness. Bruce Lee's presence challenged that belief. His ease came from control, not from lack of concern. He had already done the work internally, so there was nothing to display externally. Calm also protected his decision-making. Emotional arousal distorts judgment. When people feel pressure, they act to relieve it rather than to resolve the situation. Bruce Lee's calm prevented this. He was not trying to escape discomfort. He was comfortable remaining still while understanding formed. This patience sharpened timing and reduced error. Those who mistook calm for weakness often realized too late that they had underestimated preparation. By the time they noticed the depth of his awareness, their own options had narrowed. Their early assumptions had guided their behavior, and those behaviors had already committed them to disadvantage. Bruce Lee understood that preparation is most effective when it does not need validation. He did not measure readiness by how it looked, but by how it functioned. Calm was not a cover for unpreparedness. It was the outward result of internal order. This lesson extends beyond physical encounters. In life, people often underestimate those who remain composed under pressure. They trust visible urgency more than quiet clarity. Bruce Lee's approach reveals how misleading that habit is. Calm does not mean passive. It often means disciplined, patient, and deeply prepared. Preparation that hides behind calm is dangerous, only to those who rely on appearances. Bruce Lee never asked others to believe in his readiness. He allowed reality to reveal it when the moment required. By then, calm had already done its work. Misjudgment rarely announces itself as a mistake. It feels reasonable in the moment, even logical. When people believe they have correctly assessed a situation, their behavior subtly shifts. They stop paying attention to small details. They stop regulating themselves with the same care. Precision gives way to comfort. Bruce Lee understood this pattern deeply, and he knew that carelessness is not caused by weakness, but by misplaced confidence. Once people decided Bruce Lee was not fully engaged, they unconsciously changed how they acted around him. Their words became less measured. They spoke more than necessary, revealing intentions they would normally guard. Their movements lost discipline. Steps were taken without thought. Timing became rushed, and posture softened in ways that exposed imbalance. None of this was intentional. It happened because they believed they were safe to relax. Carelessness grows from the belief that effort is no longer required. When people assume control, they stop managing themselves. They conserve energy in the wrong places and spend it impulsively in others. Bruce Lee did not interrupt this process. He did not challenge their assumptions or try to correct their perception. He allowed misjudgment to do what it always does when left alone. Create openings. Bruce Lee observed without interference. His attention was not drawn to one action, but to patterns over time. He noticed how confidence affected behavior, how impatience altered timing, and how comfort weakened discipline. While others acted moment by moment, he was reading the situation as a whole. Every careless action added to his understanding. What makes misjudgment especially dangerous is that it compounds. One relaxed decision leads to another. Once people act casually and nothing immediately goes wrong, their confidence increases. They feel validated. This validation encourages further relaxation, further exposure, and further error. Bruce Lee allowed this chain reaction to continue because he knew that stopping it early would only reinforce their belief that they were correct. Carelessness also changes rhythm. People who feel in control move predictably. They repeat patterns without realizing it. Their timing becomes consistent rather than adaptive. Bruce Lee noticed these rhythms and understood how limiting they were. Predictability is not obvious to the person displaying it, but it is clear to someone who is watching calmly. Another aspect of carelessness is emotional leakage. When people believe they are not being evaluated, they allow frustration, excitement, or impatience to surface. These emotions affect judgment and coordination. Bruce Lee saw emotional shifts as information. He did not react to them. He cataloged them. Misjudgment also removes caution. People stop questioning their own decisions. They act faster than they think, trusting instinct rather than awareness. Bruce Lee understood that instinct without awareness is unreliable. By remaining calm, he avoided falling into the same trap. He stayed deliberate while others accelerated. What is important to understand is that Bruce Lee did not rely on others making mistakes out of incompetence. He relied on human nature. People relax when they feel superior. They rush when they feel certain. They expose themselves when they believe there is no risk. Misjudgment creates the conditions for all of this. Carelessness is rarely dramatic. It appears as small errors, slight delays, and minor misalignments. Individually, these seem insignificant. Together, they shift the balance of a situation. Bruce Lee recognized this accumulation. He knew that by the time carelessness becomes visible to the person committing it, it is already too late to correct easily. Those who misjudged him did not lose because Bruce Lee forced them into error. They lost because they abandoned discipline on their own. Their perception shaped their behavior and their behavior shaped the outcome. Bruce Lee simply stayed aware while this process unfolded. This lesson extends far beyond physical encounters. In life, people often become careless when they believe they understand a person, a job, or a situation completely. They stop learning. They stop observing. They stop adjusting. That is when mistakes begin to multiply. Bruce Lee never allowed himself that comfort. He treated every moment as dynamic, never finished, never fully known. While others relied on assumption, he relied on observation. While others relaxed into certainty, he stayed alert without tension. Misjudgment leads to carelessness because it replaces curiosity with confidence. Bruce Lee protected himself from that error by never assuming he knew enough. Those who assumed they knew him paid the price not through confrontation, but through their own loss of control. Carelessness was the cost of their certainty. Most people feel an internal urge to act the moment uncertainty appears. Silence feels uncomfortable, stillness feels risky, and waiting feels like losing control. This instinct pushes people to move early, speak quickly, or assert themselves before the situation has fully revealed itself. Bruce Lee understood this impulse well, and he understood how often it works against the person who follows it. He learned that patience is not passive delay, but an active choice that reshapes where pressure lives. When others felt the need to do something in order to feel in control, Bruce Lee chose to wait. His patience was not hesitation. It was discipline. He allowed time to stretch because he knew that time exposes imbalance. The longer a moment remains unresolved, the more pressure accumulates, and that pressure always seeks an outlet. By refusing to rush, he ensured that the pressure moved away from himself and onto everyone else involved. Patience changes the psychological center of gravity in a situation. When one person remains calm and unmoving, responsibility shifts to those who cannot tolerate uncertainty. They begin to feel that something must be done, even if nothing truly needs to be done. This feeling creates urgency, and urgency weakens judgment. Bruce Lee stayed still while others grew restless. That contrast quietly reordered the dynamics of the moment. As time passed without reaction, people who had misjudged him felt compelled to fill the silence. They spoke again, moved again, adjusted their behavior in small but revealing ways. Each adjustment was an attempt to regain a sense of control. Bruce Lee did not interfere with these attempts. He observed them. He understood that every unnecessary action revealed intention, insecurity, or impatience. Patience also protected Bruce Lee from emotional contagion. When people act out of urgency, they often try to pull others into the same state. Raised voices, quick movements, and sudden decisions create pressure to respond in kind. By remaining patient, Bruce Lee refused to synchronize with that rhythm. He stayed on his own timing, which prevented others from dictating his reactions. Another reason patience transfers pressure is that it removes predictability. When someone reacts quickly, others learn what to expect. They adjust strategies, anticipate responses, and feel oriented. When someone waits, that orientation disappears. People begin to second-guess their assumptions. They question whether they have misread the situation. This uncertainty is uncomfortable, and discomfort increases pressure. Bruce Lee understood that control does not belong to the person who moves first, but to the person who moves with clarity. By waiting, he gathered more information without committing himself. He preserved options. Others, driven by impatience, committed themselves early. Every early commitment narrowed their flexibility and increased their exposure. Patience also conserves energy. Acting under pressure consumes both physical and mental resources. Bruce Lee did not waste energy trying to manage appearances or dominate the moment prematurely. He allowed others to exhaust themselves through constant adjustment. Over time, this imbalance became decisive. Those who acted too much lost composure, while he remained steady. People often misunderstand patience as indecision. In reality, it is selective engagement. Bruce Lee was always deciding, but he was deciding internally. He evaluated necessity rather than reacting to provocation. This internal decision-making allowed him to remain composed even as the external situation grew unstable. As pressure shifted, the behavior of others changed noticeably. Movements became sharper but less controlled. Speech became faster but less precise. These are signs of someone trying to regain balance under stress. Bruce Lee recognized them immediately. He did not exploit them aggressively. He simply allowed them to continue until the imbalance was undeniable. Patience also prevented Bruce Lee from acting on incomplete understanding. Many mistakes occur because people act before the full picture is visible. By waiting, he allowed patterns to emerge. He saw not just what was happening, but how it was happening and why. This deeper understanding made any eventual response more accurate and more effective. What is important to understand is that Bruce Lee did not wait because he was uncertain. He waited because he was confident in his ability to respond when the moment was right. This confidence removed the fear of missing an opportunity. He trusted that meaningful moments do not require panic to seize them. Those who misjudged him felt pressure increasing without understanding why. They sensed that control was slipping, but they could not identify the cause. This confusion added to their stress. Bruce Lee, on the other hand, felt no such pressure. He was not trying to control the moment. He was allowing it to clarify itself. Patience also revealed character. When people are forced to wait, their coping mechanisms surface. Some become aggressive, some become anxious, some become careless. Bruce Lee watched these responses without judgment. Each one provided information. Each one confirmed what patience was already doing. By the time action was truly necessary, the situation had already shifted in his favor. Awareness had accumulated. Pressure had redistributed. Others had revealed their limits. Bruce Lee did not need to rush, because patience had done most of the work. This lesson extends far beyond confrontation. In life, people often rush decisions to relieve discomfort rather than to achieve clarity. They speak to fill silence. They act to escape uncertainty. Bruce Lee showed that patience is not avoidance, but mastery over impulse. It allows pressure to move where it belongs and exposes weakness without force. Those who misjudged him believed control required constant action. Bruce Lee proved that control often comes from knowing when not to act. While others rushed to feel powerful, he waited to be precise. That difference decided the outcome before anyone else realized it. Patience transferred pressure away from him and onto those who could not tolerate stillness. And once pressure shifts, it rarely returns. Many people believe that attention must be visible to be real. They look for sharp eye contact, rigid posture, constant movement, or verbal signals to confirm that someone is fully engaged. When these signs are missing, they assume awareness is missing too. Bruce Lee understood how deeply people rely on these surface indicators, and he understood how misleading they can be. Bruce Lee did not express awareness outwardly because he did not need to. His attention operated internally, where it could not be measured, tested, or manipulated. He did not stare to intimidate or move to announce readiness. His body remained neutral, his expression calm, and his reactions minimal. To many, this absence of display looked like disinterest. In reality, it was control. Visible awareness invites response. When people can see where your attention is directed, they adjust around it, they test boundaries, provoke reactions, or change behavior to influence outcomes. Bruce Lee avoided this by keeping his awareness unexpressed. By not revealing where his attention rested, he stayed unreadable. Those around him could not tell what he noticed, what he ignored, or what he was preparing for. This internal awareness allowed Bruce Lee to see more, not less. While others focused on projecting confidence or readiness, he focused on perception. He noticed pacing, breathing, emotional shifts, and subtle changes in behavior that were invisible to those distracted by performance. His attention stayed wide rather than narrow, allowing him to understand the situation as a whole instead of reacting to isolated details. Another advantage of unexpressed awareness is stability. When attention is displayed outwardly, it becomes vulnerable to disruption. Provocation, noise, and pressure can pull focus off course. Bruce Lee's awareness was grounded internally, which made it resistant to external interference. He was not pulled into someone else's rhythm because he was not broadcasting his own. People often equate silence with passivity, but Bruce Lee knew silence can be active. By saying nothing and doing little, he allowed others to fill the space. In doing so, they revealed priorities, insecurities, and intentions. Words spoken too freely exposed thought patterns. Movements made too casually exposed habits. Bruce Lee did not need to question anyone. Awareness gathered answers on its own. Unexpressed awareness also prevented premature commitment. When people show focus early, they often lock themselves into a response before understanding the full situation. Bruce Lee avoided this trap. By remaining neutral, he preserved flexibility. He could adjust instantly because he had not signaled intent. His responses remained free from expectation. This approach also protected him from ego. Displaying awareness often comes with a desire to be recognized. It becomes a performance rather than a function. Bruce Lee had no interest in being seen as alert. He cared about being accurate. This priority kept his perception clean and his judgment sharp. Those who misjudged him assumed awareness must look a certain way. When Bruce Lee did not fit that image, they stopped monitoring themselves carefully. They relaxed into the belief that nothing important was happening. That belief weakened their discipline. Bruce Lee allowed it to continue, knowing that awareness does not need acknowledgement to be effective. Another reason awareness without display is powerful is unpredictability. When people cannot read you, they cannot plan around you. Bruce Lee's quiet presence disrupted expectations. Others could not anticipate his timing because they could not detect his focus. This uncertainty increased pressure on them, while leaving him unaffected. Bruce Lee also understood that awareness is cumulative. It builds through patience and consistency. By remaining present without reacting, he allowed patterns to emerge over time. These patterns revealed more than any single moment could. While others reacted to fragments, he understood context. This form of awareness requires trust. Bruce Lee trusted his ability to act when needed. He did not fear missing an opportunity, because he knew that clarity creates opportunity. This trust removed the need for constant vigilance on the surface. His calm was not carelessness. It was confidence and preparation. In life, people often underestimate those who do not display their attention. They mistake quiet observation for absence. Bruce Lee demonstrated how dangerous that assumption can be. Awareness that does not announce itself often sees the most, understands the most, and acts with the greatest precision. Those who misjudged him paid the price, not because he hid something, but because they relied on appearances instead of staying alert. Bruce Lee did not need to show awareness for it to work. He simply needed to maintain it. That is why awareness does not need display. It needs discipline, patience, and honesty with oneself. Bruce Lee mastered all three, and those who depended on visible signals never saw it until it was too late. The consequences of misjudgment rarely arrive in dramatic fashion. They do not announce themselves with sudden chaos or obvious failure. More often, they surface quietly through hesitation, confusion, and a gradual loss of control that becomes clear only after it is irreversible. Bruce Lee understood this deeply. He knew that when people rely on assumption instead of awareness, the price is almost always paid later, when there is no time left to adjust. When others misjudged him, they did not immediately feel wrong. At first, everything seemed fine. Their confidence felt justified. Their decisions felt reasonable. This is what makes misjudgment so dangerous. It creates a false sense of security that delays correction. By the time doubt begins to appear, momentum has already been set in motion. Bruce Lee allowed this delay to happen. He did not rush to correct perception or force recognition. He trusted that reality would do that on its own. While others moved forward based on incomplete understanding, he stayed grounded in observation. He did not need to act for the imbalance to grow. It grew naturally, fed by their certainty. As the moment progressed, subtle changes began to appear. Timing became uncertain. Movements that once felt confident started to slow or overcorrect. Words lost their ease and gained hesitation. These shifts were not dramatic enough to trigger alarm, but they were enough to signal that something was wrong. Bruce Lee noticed these changes immediately. Others felt them without understanding their cause. This is where the cost of misjudgment becomes clear. Once people realize they may have misunderstood a situation, they are forced to reassess under pressure. Reassessment requires time, but time is rarely available at that stage. Early assumptions have already shaped behavior. Choices have already been made. Options have already narrowed. Bruce Lee did not benefit from this confusion because he created it. He benefited because he avoided it. He had never committed himself to a single interpretation of the situation. While others acted on belief, he acted on clarity. When realization arrived, he was already aligned with reality. Others were not. The most unsettling part of this realization is that Bruce Lee had not changed at any point. He did not suddenly become more capable or more alert. The only thing that changed was perception. People began to understand what had been present all along. That understanding came too late to restore balance. Misjudgment also carries a psychological cost. When people realize they were wrong, confidence collapses. Doubt replaces certainty. Reactions slow as the mind tries to process conflicting information. This internal disruption weakens coordination and judgment. Bruce Lee recognized that this moment of realization is often more decisive than any physical action. He did not exploit this moment aggressively. He did not rush to overwhelm or dominate. He allowed it to settle. He understood that once perception breaks, recovery is difficult. People lose trust in their own judgment, and that loss of trust creates hesitation. This is why the cost of misjudgment is rarely paid immediately. It is paid when adjustment is required, but no longer possible. It is paid when people realize they have been responding to an illusion rather than reality. Bruce Lee allowed this process to complete itself without interference. The lesson here is not about punishment or consequence imposed by another person. It is about the natural outcome of relying on assumption instead of observation. Bruce Lee did not need to create pressure. He allowed pressure to build where it belonged. When realization arrived, it carried the weight of everything that had been ignored. This principle extends far beyond physical encounters. In life, people often misjudge situations, relationships, and opportunities based on surface impressions. They commit early, relax prematurely, and stop paying attention. When reality contradicts their assumptions, the cost appears through lost options and delayed response. Bruce Lee avoided this by never allowing comfort to replace awareness. He remained attentive even when nothing seemed urgent. He stayed curious even when situations appeared simple. This discipline protected him from the shock of late realization. Those who misjudged him were not defeated by force. They were defeated by timing. They realized too late that their certainty had been misplaced. By the time clarity arrived, it no longer changed the outcome. Bruce Lee understood that awareness must be maintained before it feels necessary. Once awareness is lost, it cannot be recovered instantly. That is why he never relied on appearance, confidence, or assumption. He relied on continuous observation. The true cost of misjudging Bruce Lee was not embarrassment or loss. It was the moment of understanding that arrived after control had already slipped away. That moment cannot be undone. It can only be remembered. And that is why misjudgment is so dangerous. Not because it feels reckless, but because it feels safe until it is far too late. Bruce Lee never relied on intimidation, speed, or display to shape the outcome of a moment. He relied on awareness that stayed active even when nothing seemed urgent, patience that allowed truth to reveal itself, and discipline that did not require recognition. Those who misjudged him did not lose because he overwhelmed them. They lost because they stopped observing, trusted appearance over understanding, and realized too late that clarity had been working quietly against them. The lesson is simple, but rarely practiced. Control does not belong to the one who looks ready. It belongs to the one who stays aware when others relax. Bruce Lee understood this long before anyone noticed, and by the time they did, the moment had already passed.